I think I got it, Jonathan.
Okay.
All right, we are live on YouTube, and I believe we have a quorum.
Great. All right, well, we'll start. Good evening. I now call the April 20th, 2021 meeting of the Lafayette General Plan Advisory Committee to order. This meeting is streaming live on the city's YouTube and is also accessible by Zoom webinar. The link to log in is on the city's calendar. We will do a roll call for all those committee members in attendance. Staff will read the names aloud. Committee members, when you hear your name, please affirm your presence.
All right. Carol Singer.
Here.
Namrata Kasalanadi.
Here.
Don Jenkins.
Here.
Dick Craig.
Present.
Matt Pease.
Here.
Beth Needle.
Present.
Jim Cervantes. Mike Kim. Susie Kelly. Christine Rasmussen. Okay, Mike Kim. I see Mike's video. Chris Lee.
Here.
Anna Radinich.
Present.
And Susan Kendall.
Present.
All right, thank you.
Great. Okay, would a committee member like to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Great, agenda is adopted. Moving on to public comment. Staff, are there any people in the wings waiting to make a public comment?
Would like to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen or *9 if you're calling in. This is for an item not on the agenda. I don't see any hands raised at this time.
All right. Moving on, we have our next item, which is housekeeping. And the topic to discuss tonight would be the GPAC meeting length policy. So Carol, would you like to start off?
Yes, this came up, I think it was Sarah made a comment about members of the committee had concerns about the meetings being too long, running too late. I think we had one that was quite late. So I brought up if we wanted to establish a policy about how long we wanted our meetings to be, because I think when we get into the arena and the scenarios, we're going to have a lot of public comments. And as you know, watching the city council, sometimes these go on like till midnight. And I think the council policy is when they reach midnight, they take a vote. If they want to go for another half hour, then I think they take another vote. If they want to go further than that. So I wondered, you know, what did we want to do if we have extensive public comment? You know, what's our policy? We quit at a certain time and take the rest of the public comment next time, or shouldn't we sort of have a policy about what we want to do? It's not a problem for me time-wise, but people apparently have concerns about the time.
You know,
I'll put that out there.
Yeah, Carol, I think sometimes I kind of like what the city council does, where if we have a quorum and we want to extend because we think it's important that we get commentary, I think giving ourselves the option to extend with the understanding that some members might have to drop off that have a job or school or whatever. I thought that might give us the flexibility that we, can do half-hour extensions. Because I do think some of these housing commentaries are going to be really important. And I don't want to go late every time we meet, but there may be some times where it's worth extending, and just giving ourselves the option seems to me to be the most flexibility, with everybody understand if they can't stay on, as long as we have a quorum, that's fine to drop off. My suggestion.
Well, since Mayor Kendall has a lot of experience with long meetings, Mayor, do you have any suggestions for us to guide ourselves through a period where we may be spending a long time on public comments?
Sure. I think the idea that we follow in terms of taking a vote is reasonable, and we have really long meetings, especially on development projects, because we are limited to 5 meetings total by new state law. So our meetings can't stop. That's why they continue deep into the night, because we're not allowed to take a break and come back the next day. That counts as a separate meeting, and we would get in trouble by the state. So, or the developer. Anyway, so you guys can choose to do it, but I think there will be nights that you might run into this. And so it's not a bad idea to have a vote on whether you continue an item or not. I encourage you on nights like that sometimes it's just better to stick it out and get it done, and then the item is over. And then you don't have to, bringing it back often brings back the same level of comments. It's hard to tell people, oh, we already heard your comment, so don't speak again. That's hard. And so typically it's better to power on if it's a tough issue and you think you might be able to get consensus. So that's my suggestions.
And maybe an idea would be to take a vote of those who could stay late, so we would know we have a quorum.
Mm-hmm.
And that would solve one.
That's what the vote is all about. The vote is all about that, right? Yes.
I mean, take a vote now of people who could stay till midnight or whatever time. So we would know we have a quorum. That would be the problem. If too many people had to leave and could not extend the meeting, then we'd have a problem. We wouldn't have a quorum.
True, but I would only take the vote when you run up to the time that you're saying is the end time, the goal end time, not like at the beginning of the meeting.
No, I was talking right now to see how many people. I don't know they apparently said something to Sarah. So I don't know how many people had a problem with this or have a problem. I imagine
that's great. I would take, there's 3 hands up, and so maybe we have 3 hands up. Maybe we should listen to them first and then see if we have a consensus.
Let's see. Don, I see your hand up.
My hand's up. My question would be, is 7 a quorum then with a group of 13? Always
6.
6?
Uh-huh. Anna and the mayor are not non-voting members, so there are 11 voting members.
11 voting, so 6. Okay.
Right. Do you have any other? Oh, okay. Anna, I saw your hand up.
Talking to myself. Thank you. I agree with Mayor Candell. Through Planning Commission, oftentimes the hearings go very late, but oftentimes it is also more efficient to listen to the public comments and finish the meeting in that session. I think taking a vote now, there's just no way to know which meetings on which dates are going to go late. So I would suggest a meeting by meeting circumstance. And also we'll have the agendas ahead of time. So we will be able to better plan, or maybe if there's a way that we can know kind of when to expect or anticipate which meetings might go longer, so we can plan accordingly as parents, as partners, as, employees, students, and to maximize the number of people who can remain on the meeting. That's it. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, right.
And Jim, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was going to say, at the risk of being repetitive now, that I think we do it on a meeting by meeting basis, and maybe say 7:30, take the vote. That means we're driving to 7:30. It's an hour and a half. It says pikers by the standard of the city council, but that maybe is the target. And if we run over, take a vote, go to 8 or 8:30, you're probably gonna be the best judge at that point as to how much would we have to chop and whether a half hour is enough or an hour would be needed. And
Right.
I think the goal is 7:30, and if we push back if we need to. Can I make a motion to that effect, or do we need to do that? Just to move this along? Or it's just an informal agreement good enough?
Jim, do you think it could be at least 8? I don't remember where I was volunteered by my commission. Those of you who were in the lottery, were you told an ending time to expect?
No.
No?
I don't think I remember anything that specific, but
Okay. Would you consider 8 o'clock? That would.
but I think if I add up what's on this agenda, it's 7:30, I think, is what we end up at, right? So 6 or 5, 10, 30. Yeah, I'm fine. I mean, maybe 8 o'clock, but I'm also fine with the chair cracking the whip if we need to move things along. So.
Yeah, and I think for the time being, we're aiming to 7:30. So because we discussed this a few weeks ago, and we're actually taking the overage time out of the presentations. So if we get through with discussion item 7 on the agenda, if we get through and it's too close to 7:30 to start the second presentation, then we're just going to have to move it. But of course, we'll talk about that.
All right.
But that's 45 minutes. So I have faith in the committee to be able to manage this properly. I'm not sure it needs a motion at this point in time. I think we're all aware. And we don't have the same kinds of problems that the city council has.
I think we
Or
will.
planning. Or planning, yeah.
Or planning, right.
Big public comment coming up.
Right, I agree. And I think what's going to happen is presentation time is going to go down as we get closer to expecting public comment. Anybody have any other ideas?
No.
All right, great. Thank you, Carol, for bringing that up.
Shirley,
Oh, I see a hand. Jonathan.
I just want to acknowledge that Jim Cervantes and Christine Rasmussen arrived shortly after roll call. Jim at 6:01, Christine at 6:04.
Okay, and I see Mike Kim is on the group too.
So called out for being tardy here. Thanks.
Well, I was almost tardy, so
You're here. That's what matters.
glad it wasn't me this time. Could have been. All right, so thank you all for that discussion. Now we have commissioner activity reports. Those are scheduled for 5 minutes each. The first is from myself and Jim regarding the city council update. Jim, do you want to go first?
Well, sure. I talked after Chris talked about the mission, gave the council an update on the mission statement. The survey instrument, if you want to call it that, was in the agenda package. That is close to final. There's some tweaks on that, but just kind of updated the council on the work that's been done. The thought to put out the survey to as broad a group as we can get for about a 6-week period, launching that probably the beginning of May. And then using that to sort of like help inform us as to where the community is. And I think we'll just need to see what the response level is and how clear the responses are. Our thought would be to circle back with GPAC and the council after that's in, And our group will talk about sort of next steps as to whether we feel like we need to do more outreach or this is sufficient. And then after presenting the survey results to GPAC and the council, start to work on drafting something. So that was kind of the recap of what I talked through with the council.
And I thought it was very well received, Jim. It was a good explanation of what you've been doing and what you're planning on doing. I gave a report about GPAC's activities. I actually started with a overview of who's on the committee and what their role is. So you may be hearing from people that maybe didn't know you were a neighborhood rep. And I just went through actually each meeting agenda and my notes and just chronologically went through what we did and what our products have been so far. I used the Engagement HQ statistics that came out after the neighborhood meetings to talk about if not the quantity of responses, the quality of responses. And I think the most important statistic that I saw in the Engagement HQ was that people said that they would be willing to attend another meeting. And I thought that was very positive for us. That means that we created excitement, that they understood what we were talking about and they want to learn more. So, and the city council was, very happy to hear about our progress. So I thought it went well. Any questions? Great. Okay. Next commissioner activity report is from myself, Carol, and Christine Rasmussen on the Lafayette Homeowners Council Zoom webinar last Monday night. Again, let's start with Christine. Would you like to report in?
Sure, and Carol, just pipe in whenever you hear anything that I've forgotten to mention or something else that you saw. So we had a homeowners council meeting with presenters from Livable, California, and also from a group called United Neighbors. And they were discussing the California housing crisis, affordable housing crisis, and also the effects of SB 9 and SB 10. And we had approximately 50 people in attendance. We had a very informative question and answer session afterwards. And I thought it was a very good presentation. It gave a good understanding of what's going on with California housing and then how it would affect our city in particular. They had shown some slides and gave us some ideas about how we can make some suggestions to the state as different ways of maybe approaching the affordable housing problem that we're having right now. Yeah, so Carol, can you think of anything else?
No, I think that was very good. We did have a lot of questions and good feedback about it. I think it sparked interest in, different ways to deal with the situation. Yeah, thank you, Christine.
I'd also like to mention as well, if anyone has missed that session, they can view it on the Lafayette homeownerscouncil.org website. There's a link there. And it is really quite informative. So I highly recommend people who are unfamiliar or couldn't attend the meeting that you could look at it there.
I second that. That's I actually went to their website today to make sure that it was still there. It's right on the front page. You just click on it, and it was extremely informative. For me, it was interesting to see what organizations like Livable California and United Neighbors are talking about. I thought the gentleman from Livable California had a really excellent mastery of figures. They're very legislation oriented. So that was actually very interesting to me. They really analyze the bills that are moving through the Assembly and the Senate. And the United Neighbors folks that spoke are a husband and wife team. And I would just recommend watching that video. It's really interesting. A completely different perspective than I've seen so far. Jim, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. And thanks for the recap. I will check out the website because I wanted to catch this, but I couldn't. So I just two questions. I think I looked at the websites for United Neighbors in Livable, California. They talked about affordable housing on there. Did they bring that up at all? Like, because that's a piece of all this that I'm not sure how we get to. But
Oh, they talk about it quite a bit, actually. And one of the biggest issues that they have with the legislation that's currently underway is that there is no affordable housing included in any of these bills. And we feel, at least from Lafayette Homeowners Council, that affordable housing is really the bigger issue here. And that was part of what we were trying to educate more people about, because it's kind of misunderstood about what the housing bills will do or not do. And I think affordable housing is a big component of this that's being missed.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And did they get into density, like the whole question of upzoning and?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. It's very informative.
Okay, good. I'll check that out. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the LHC webinar? Okay. Why don't we move on to?
My apologies, but I neglected to get this in on the agenda but I wanted to let folks know that kind of middle part of last week, I sort of had the second part of the conversation with the Save Lafayette folks, mainly Guy Atwood and Colin Elliott. It was a continuation of a call we'd had earlier that got truncated when Zoom cut out. And so we continued the conversation mainly about the buffer topic. You know, what's the level on top of the 2100 base that we need to get to. So I was impressed with Colin Elliott. He's a very, very well versed in all this. And so, I mean, I was kind of asking him questions about that topic because I know we're gonna have to circle back on that later. That was the main focus of the conversation. I mean, my attitude has been whether it's Inclusive Lafayette or Save Lafayette or whatever group in the community, if they want to talk to me or anyone, you know, that's what we're here for. I did encourage them to check into the upcoming sessions we've got to, you know, make sure they check their mailbox. And I think Michael Griffith was on the Remo session last week. I think I saw him on the list for this one, so they're aware of it. And I just encourage them that, you know, it's important to participate. So that was the gist of it.
Great. All right. Thank you, Jim. Okay, moving on. Our next topic is discussion of the housing element workshop facilitation and attendance. And this will be made by staff.
So, we kind of just wanted to go over sort of the big picture goals, outcomes, and process for the workshop on Thursday, as well as your role as a facilitator, and then hopefully get our volunteers for 5 voting members for each of the workshops this evening. So ultimately, this particular workshop, and I think last time we shared, or a few times ago, we shared sort of that triangle that kind of shows how the 4 workshops work together. And we're starting with big picture ideas, working towards opportunities to constraints, then zoning specifics, and then opportunity sites more detailed. So that's sort of the outline of the 4 workshops in order. So the goal of this particular workshop is really big picture ideas about values around housing, to kind of exchange ideas and think about that as a whole. And then the outcome of that ultimately is going to be notes that will be taken by the table hosts, which will help to inform GPAC's future evaluation of the goals, policies, and programs that go into the housing element. The process by which we will be doing this is a World Cafe style is what they call it. Essentially, it's as if you were at the cafe, as if you were at Papillon, just having a chat with your community. But it's a little bit slightly more formal and more documented. So essentially it is tables hosted, and I don't know if I heard the Remo event was a little bumpy, but that's a great thing because we learned from that and and now know a little bit more about what we need to do next time. And I'm just going to share my screen so you can see it in case you didn't attend or you aren't familiar. But essentially there will be these tables. So this is sort of what your screen looks like as you join the Remo event, and you're able to jump from table to table. And they're all labeled with oak trees or different tree names that might appear in Lafayette. So ultimately there'll be one one table host at each table. And there will be, we're hoping for at least four people at each table to have a discussion. And then when there'll be a sort of a timer and a notification for you to switch tables, the host will stay at the table and everyone else will switch by double clicking on a different table. So hopefully you have different conversation with a different group of folks. So essentially your role as a host, table host, will be to stay at your table and to facilitate the conversation. So you'll be asking questions of the group. Initially, you'll be asking everyone to introduce themselves, and then asking the initial question, taking notes, listening. There are 2 questions for each round, and we have 2 rounds and 25 minutes for each round. So that is sort of the breakdown. There will be a technical facilitator at the meeting, and then staff will be facilitating more broadly. At the end of the 2 rounds, the staff will create a presentation mode where everyone will be seeing the same screen, and will pull each meeting host or table host up to what they call the stage, which is here, but essentially it's just the presentation that everyone can see, to debrief and talk about what kind of common themes and ideas came out of their discussion groups. As they're doing it, staff will be taking notes and sharing screens so that visually the entire group can see the notes being recorded. And then that will be our documentation that we'll be able to reference later when we're doing goals, policies, and programs. There will be, as I mentioned, a tech facilitator. So we'll be starting the meeting slightly earlier and probably not commencing the actual workshop until a few minutes after the 7 o'clock start time, just to allow get everyone on board and make sure that they are all comfortable with the technology. The tech facilitator will do sort of a short presentation about what you need to know. He'll also be in the meeting, sort of just sitting at the table. If you have a question, tech question, you can come and visit him at the table by double clicking on that table. He also will be available if you for some reason can't get into the meeting or you're having any sort of tech issues. We'll email his phone number and email address so you can connect with him. And so this evening, we're hoping, so in addition to our group here, the GPAC members, we'll also be having other hosts, table hosts that are staff in order to accommodate the total number of tables that we need. So currently, I think there are about 44 people signed up. We're hoping to get a lot more by doing a bit more sort of push and outreach, and we'll be asking you all to do that with your networks as well today or tomorrow. So through another email, some personal contacts, tabling at the BART station, a few other things. So hopefully we'll get additional participants, but currently there are 44 signed up, which seems low based on our Housing Element 101 sessions. So what we're hoping to get out of today's discussion is sort of people to sign up for the different workshops. And I have it listed so that we basically just have all of our GPAC voting members at one particular table. Chair Lee will be attending all of the workshops. And so we sort of need to fill in those who would be hosting tables. So again, it's not as scary as it sounds. You would just be facilitating the discussion and conversation. taking notes and making sure that you at the end can sort of concisely coalesce those notes into some common words, phrases, ideas. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. I'll stop
Yes,
sharing.
I
for the
do.
moment.
I do.
Carol?
Yeah, did you say there be 2 questions each round?
Correct.
And when do we get the questions?
Yeah, so we do have a very thorough step-by-step outline of how it will go. We were planning to send that out to whoever is the host of the workshop, workshop 1. So I can send it as soon as I have it.
I mean,
Charlie,
when does the person at the table get the questions from the host?
when they attend the event, right? So the host will have the materials, and then at the event, the host will ask the question of the group and make sure everyone has a chance to speak and respond. Was that your?
So you mean each table will have the same question?
Yes. And that is primarily because we can't guarantee that everyone would be able to reach every table. And so we're all going to be talking about the same question at the same time.
And do you want to just indicate what the questions are? I think that might be helpful.
Sure. So in the initial question is just going to be, what is your name and what drew you here today? So that's going to be an introduction, so everyone kind of knows where this is coming from. And then the first round would be, what does it mean to have a place to live in Lafayette? And then the second question would be, what values, interests, and concerns do I hold about housing in Lafayette? Then the table host will sort of recap the things that they've heard, so that that table feels like what they said is what the host wrote down. And then when we transition to the second table, the host will then do the same question with those new people. What is your name and what drew you here today? And then give a rundown, brief summary of what the last table spoke about, kind of just very high level. And then the next 2 questions would be, what have you heard from others in round 1 that you feel is most significant for you personally? And what do you think are the most important themes or ideas the city should be sure to take into consideration in decisions about the housing element of the general plan?
Okay, not sure who raised their hand first, but I see Dick and then Matt.
Okay, couple of questions, and I'm sorry I missed the session the other night, so I might be a little behind things here, but I'm still not clear in the dynamics. Sarah, you said there's 44 people signed up. There's 5 tables. Do we just keep adding people to tables or add tables?
So,
which has a limitation here at some point with the number of hosts.
Sure. So the number of hosts from GPAC is 5, but that's not the total number of hosts. So we're planning that we can have up to 200 attendees. Currently, there are only 44 signed up. So that's what, 9 tables if we do 4 per table. So those other people would be staff or other folks doing the hosting, not GPAC.
But there's still going to be a large number of tables, and if upwards of 100 people show up.
That is true.
Okay, so we just add larger tables, basically.
So there's a maximum of 6 people per table, and so that would be the host plus 5 attendees.
Okay.
So that would be we would have to make more tables.
And just as I said, I missed the session. I did watch the video. I mean, you're comfortable that we can feel our way through this thing technically?
And so I know that there's a lot of nervousness around that. And so that's why we have hired a person to kind of facilitate the tech side. So if there are any questions, as well as having a pre-meeting rundown, basically like just a run through of what's going to happen at the meeting with those that are facilitating at that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd be happy to have a call or a separate session with you if that makes you feel more comfortable.
Okay, Matt Pease is next, and after him, Jim.
Yeah, I've worked with, I used to work with WebEx, and so I'm used to these tools, but I have to tell you, that tool, I'm concerned about it being too complicated for the layperson. And I guess I'll echo Dick's concern is, could the tool potentially distract from the value we're going to get out of this? Are we better off maybe with something that's not quite as elegant like Zoom, but as people are more in tune, being able to use that? So I guess that's my question is Zoom still an option, or is this the only way we can do this?
So it's not the only way. I think that it's probably a little late to change now for the Thursday meeting.
Why is it too late?
Just because people have already signed up with the Remo platform and we've done the noticing and that kind of thing. The other thing so we've tried to simplify it a bit. I know at the test run, we tried to use the whiteboard and some other things which didn't quite work very well. But we're sort of stripping that down and making all of those technical aspects going to be on staff to do. So the only thing that the host needs to do is enter the meeting, join their particular table, stay at the table. The only thing that the participants need to do is join any table and then double click on another table to join that table. That's pretty much the only thing, and staff will be able to run the rest and do a visual of everything. The benefit of this particular platform is that we can record it and we can do a live stream, not of the particular tables, but of the presentation mode, so that everyone will be able to see the debrief at the end to kind of have an outline of what was discussed at the meeting.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more transparent than Zoom is, which is why we went with it. But I definitely hear the concerns and we're trying to mitigate them as much as possible.
So as facilitators, I can take notes. I don't have to use the whiteboard.
Correct. You just take physical notes, and then when you come up on stage, you'll verbalize them. Staff will type them in real time so everyone can see they're being recorded.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
All right, Jim, then Namratha, then Don.
Yeah, and I was going to say, just to segue off of Matt's comments, I had, believe me, the same concerns after the Remo session we had, not to the point where I was about to hit the panic button. So I reached out to Renata and Sarah for help. We managed to catch up today with Chris. And I think that the approach that staff is taking here, I think should work. Because my fear was that, I'm 60-something baby boomer, I'm going to screw up this whiteboard. We don't have to deal with that. It's just facilitating a conversation, which I can do, and take notes on a legal pad or something and relate that when we're supposed to bring it up. So I think this is a really stripped down version. No whiteboards for the hosts. It's like really like being at the cafe and having a conversation. So I think we just should go with it. And we'll have a couple of bumps, but I think we'll get better at it. And I would say just push on. Because I think they really eliminated the tech stuff from the host perspective, I think. So I felt much better about this after chatting a bit.
Okay.
My 2 cents.
All right, Namratha.
Wait 1 second. Okay. I just have to say I absolutely love Remo. I don't know, it just made me so happy. I kind of felt like I was in a video game. So yeah, I just have to say that I think we should give it a shot because it just looks really cool.
I didn't expect that.
Okay.
Oh, Lord.
Thank you for saying that.
This is great. This is a diversity of opinions, and this is what it's all about. So.
All right. So Namratha, can you give us in a nutshell what you liked about, because I was so lame that I had to just log off. So I'd like to hear.
Well, I actually found the whiteboard quite nice and had a lot of interesting features. But I think the feature that I loved the most about it was the fact that you could kind of choose your table and see who else was there. Like I know Zoom has like breakout rooms that can like now do that, but I don't know, just like the look of this one with the tables and like you can see where people are sitting and you get like a feeling of like it just felt like in person. Like I don't mean to say like a video game. It felt like you were in a virtual world where you were just kind of like you could click on a table and you knew who was there. And you like it felt like you were walking to a table and sitting down, and then like you could go up the floor and like go down the floor, and like I suggested we should add a snack bar just for like fun, but yeah, I just thought it was really cool and I like the graphics.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, you sound like my grandkids.
That's great. I love it.
Okay, Namratha just set a very high bar for the
No
rest of
kidding.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you for that input. Thanks. Don, and then Carol.
I think we ought to let Narita bring all the people to chair this. I've never played a video game in my life, and I found this too much like a video game, moving around and getting confused, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I'm hearing tonight is that we all don't necessarily have to participate in every single one, and that we might certainly want to all be in attendance so that we can see exactly how this is working. Because frankly, I came out of the training last week and I said, there's no way I'm going to show my ignorance to the whole city. I've got 13 people can tell how dumb I am, but I don't need to show everybody. And so this is a way to kind of step into it. And I would assume that, again, I want the information, but I don't necessarily have to be the person in charge to get this information is what I'm hearing. And so that you are allowing, am I correct that you're allowing us to kind of slide into it gradually rather than sink or swim?
Well, I think so. You wouldn't be in attendance if you weren't hosting as a voting GPAC member, but you could. You don't have to host if you don't want to. If we can find enough volunteers for each of the meetings, and you don't want to host, then that is acceptable.
So do we have Brown Act issues if we just attend the meeting and we're not doing something official?
Correct. And the risk there is that someone comes up on stage and says sort of their opinion and then everybody in GPAC knows that it's that person's opinion without it being sort of a formal meeting. So it's unfortunate, but the city attorney has advised that we should have five voting members only at each of the sessions.
No.
So we cannot attend all meetings.
All of you cannot attend all meetings, correct?
Okay.
We could, if the group decides you want the same 5 at each of the meetings to host the tables, that could work. So if Don never wants to host, that's okay. Whatever the group decides.
But they can watch the recording of it afterward.
You would be able to watch the recording after. I think ultimately what would happen is probably there would be a debrief at the next GPAC meeting so that it's just all above board and on the agenda.
Okay.
But you could watch the video. Yes or no?
I think you could. Let me check with Mala, the city attorney. I think you can. But you just couldn't be in the meeting.
Because we would want to post the video to planlafayette.org, right?
Yes, we would.
Okay. So
watch it.
No problem.
Yeah.
Oh, is the video in real time?
It will be streamed live on YouTube as well as recorded.
Oh, okay. That's good.
So that's a way the other people can watch and not attend, right?
Right.
Sarah?
Exactly.
I think so, but I just want to double check, because the idea too is that, you know, the person is up on stage, and if everyone's at the meeting, then they hear the opinion of that person. The same thing would happen if they're watching it not at the meeting, right? So I think to me, the safest bet is a debrief at the next GPAC meeting, but I'll just double check with Mala, because I would love for everyone to participate as much as possible. But I just want to make sure we're above board on the Brown Act stuff.
But if we're there at the meeting, we hear who's on the stage.
But there are only
There's
5.
another host.
It's only 5 of us, so we have less than a quorum.
Oh, so you never have more than 5. Okay, I get it.
We'll
Our
just go
council-
and other people for the remaining number of hosts that we need.
Just for clarity, our council, if we watch the webinar, it's okay. That's how she's ruled. So hopefully that's the way it gets ruled for here too. You just can't participate. You can watch, but you can't participate.
Yeah. And just a clarification question. The part you can watch is the, it's not, you can't get into as like one of the individual tables. to watch.
Right. No, you watch the YouTube.
You're just watching.
You're not even in the Remo at all.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So, right.
Okay.
So
Okay, so we have Don, we have hand up, Carol still hand up. Who else? No one? Anybody have any other comments?
Mayor.
Mayor Kendall?
Oh, Carol goes first.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask, when you sign in, I had a guest ask me this. They signed in and they had to, she wasn't clear, do something on Remo, do a profile or something. And he said to me, I don't want to do that. And I tried on my link for one of the meetings. I had to create a profile. I didn't do it. You have to have a profile to get in, and I didn't do it at the training. So is that why I don't get in, or how does that work?
were you not able to get into the meeting at the training, Carol?
Well, I got out of it 3 times at our training, but is it because I didn't create a profile? When I went to the link now, it wanted me to create a profile.
So I think the profile is just sort of a little bit more details about you as a person, because really this is sort of like a networking platform. So people know who you are. As far as I know, you only need to enter an email and a password in order to get into the meeting. So the profile is optional.
I thought they wanted a lot more information than that.
Yeah, I did too. That's not what I got.
That's my lack of understanding. If I were younger, I would have known I could just skip right through that. I didn't have to tell them everything I know about myself.
Okay, well, we can make those instructions explicit in the step-by-step guide.
I did run into something where when I registered, my identity was just the letter C, and there were other people with the letter C. So we were not sure who we were, especially if we were sitting at the same table. Whereas other people had their photos, they had, uploaded photos so they could find themselves in the meeting room. So I think there's some benefit for going, some distance to make sure you can find your own self. All right. Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yes. So a question. This happens because same thing. I do this stuff at work, and at meetings like this, especially town hall, you want to make sure that everybody gets a say, right? And sometimes these forums, it just tends to be the loudest person at the table or the most vocal. And
Mhm.
so if there could be, and especially with this one, because you can, like, the same person can go everywhere, right? And then they would be, and so if there's some sort of, I don't know, not rules, but, just decorum, like basically try to go to one place, make sure everybody is heard. Don't be, don't try to skip around and get your same ideas to every single table kind of thing, because you want to have everybody have the same voice, I guess, equal
Right. So that,
representation.
right. So correct me, Sarah, if I'm wrong, the table host is kind of like the moderator, and they will have, let's say, four people at their table. So it's their job to not say a lot, but make sure that everybody has a chance to say something. And if there is somebody sort of holding back or someone who's dominating, the table host, can bring that, that hold back forward and just make sure everybody, has something to say during that 25 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's an important job because they can't say much, but they need to prompt everybody else to say something.
Right. Yeah. Good luck, all you.
Okay.
I'm sure you guys are going to do great. Honestly. Honestly. You will.
So I see Carol.
I'm up again.
I see Carol, Anna, and Jim, and I'm not sure what the order was.
Well, I think Anna and Jim and me,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I'll just make a quick statement. Thank you. I think the key is people who have signed up for this do have an opinion that they want to share. So I don't think it's going to be as much pulling teeth maybe as might be anticipated. I think people are going to want to share, and if anything, we're going to have, or the facilitators are going to have to make sure that everyone gets a chance to share.
Right. Yep.
Thank you.
I agree. Okay, Jim?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I totally echo that, because it's only worthwhile if everyone gets a chance to participate. So that's the host's job. And maybe to Sarah, are you going to work on like a more orientation again for the hosts here? Is that in the works?
Yes.
Okay, so that might be worth talking through.
Yep. So once we get the hosts once we decide on a host as a group, we will set up a session for the workshop 1, go over exactly step by step how we plan for it to go, and do some practicing with those 5 folks.
Great. Thank you.
Will you do that for every session?
Yes, we will.
So I saw that I'm on the list for all sessions, and is that as a host?
That was the intention, but we only because we want to maximize the number of hosts, because we might need more tables, right? And so.
Okay. Yep. All right. And Carol, next.
Yeah, and Kate, I'm not sure what all the questions are, but I think some of these people will be fairly sophisticated, and we have 25-minute sessions each, 25 minutes. So you have a list of backup questions. I mean, some of these people may just, rattle off, and that's it. They've answered the question. They don't want to talk anymore. So, it's so will you have some backup questions? I mean, you can't say, well, tell me some more. They don't have any more to say.
Yeah, I mean, they may, I think the goal would be to facilitate the conversation amongst each other. And 25 minutes is not really that long, especially if you're introducing folks and then also recapping at the end. But in the step-by-step guide, I have a list of what ifs, what if this happens, what if that happens, and a list of tactics to kind of help redirect someone if they're going off topic, or to kind of spur the conversation if it's lagging. So all of that is will be emailed to whoever the hosts are.
Okay, but how does that work though? You'll email it to the hosts of the first meeting or to all the hosts that are signed up?
So because we wanted it to be sort of tailored and very specific to each meeting, it will be once per meeting. So it may not be exactly the same thing at every single meeting. So we'll do the training and the step-by-step guide at each meeting, before each meeting.
And let's see, Dick?
Thanks. Sarah, if I understood, you said there's going to be a pre-session for the hosts prior to Thursday evening. Is that going to be just prior to the meeting or during the day, or?
Probably tomorrow, but but ultimately that we want to work with the schedules of the people who are hosting. So.
Okay, so you'll be coming back on that. Okay.
Yes, and you probably saw your name on the first set of workshops. It's because I saw that you had signed up, and you're a voting member, so I put your name in there. But if you aren't comfortable yet, we can work around that.
Okay. I think I'm good at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Dawn, and that's it. Go ahead.
Again, either put the screen up or can you give the dates again on these 4 sessions?
Sure. It's the next 4 Thursdays at 7 p.m. So the 22nd of April, the 29th of April, the 6th of May, and the 13th of May.
Okay, thanks.
You assigned us already?
Have not. I just filled in a few of the folks, like Chair Lee will be at all of the meetings, and then I saw that Matt and Dick had signed up for the first session, so I put them in. But that is the goal, is for us to kind of go through and have a discussion about who is going to attend which meeting.
Okay.
And I'll just share my screen again so we can all see that. And if anybody is uncomfortable, doesn't want to do it, wants to do it.
Sarah, this is Matt. I signed up for all 4 meetings. I've got them on my calendar. You can use me as you see fit. I'll just use me as to plug in where you need it.
Okay. If the group's good with that, I'm good with that.
I can say the same thing. I mean, I'm pretty flexible here over these 4 weeks.
Great.
I would like to do the 29th. I cannot do the 6th at all.
Okay.
And I can do all 4. It's Christine.
Okay. So we'll do Christine.
And Sarah, this is Jim. I'm on for number 3. I can do, I'd love to do number 3. I can also do 2 and 4 if you need help with that. So I could be a utility player there if that's helpful.
Okay. We'll give Dick a break.
I can do both May 6th and May 13th, and maybe Thursday, but I'm not free at all tomorrow, and I'm not free before 4 o'clock on Thursday. So I need some faster training, or I'll hobble through. It's fine.
It looks like just one more on Thursday.
Where's Narantha?
Oh, well, yeah, I could do it. I just don't know if people would actually like listen to me, but yeah, I could.
Of course they would.
You're the most enthusiastic. You got to do it.
You got
Yeah, you have to do it.
You're the one that likes Remo.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Is everyone comfortable with that? Excellent.
Great.
Now
Thanks, everybody.
if something comes up and somebody wants to change, with another person, or what do they do? Go through you? Sarah, go through
Yeah,
you.
we can do that. Just let me know if there's any issues and then we'll try and schedule someone else.
Yes, Sarah, it might be good to have like a couple of backups in your back pocket, just in case something comes up with somebody. You know, somebody comes in from out of town and they've got to leave suddenly.
All right, I'm gonna put Dick as a backup for for the remaining 3. Is that okay, Dick?
That's fine.
There are also a couple GPAC primaries who are not in attendance tonight who may be interested in serving as a table host. So we might want to just check in and see if they want to plug in at some point.
I can be back up to the backup.
Okay, excellent. Great. So that's what I needed from this agenda item. We haven't yet opened the public comment, but I'll let Shirley do that when she's ready.
Okay, I see one more hand up. Don, your raised hand is up.
No, I'm off.
All right. And Carol, you have a raised hand.
Yeah, if we have, if I fool around with it some more and I have questions, can I call? Who do I call? Sarah?
You can contact me, and if I can answer them, I will, and if not, I'll reach out to the tech expert that we have on hand.
Or Renata, or
she is also very good at tech stuff as well.
Okay.
Better than me, actually. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else want to answer a question before we go to public comment? Okay, good. So we'll open up the discussion to public comment. And just a word, the public comments are limited to 3 minutes. So with that.
I have a raised hand of David Clark, so I'll promote him now. If you would like to make a public comment, use that raise your hand function at the bottom of the screen or *9.
Hi, everybody. Shirley, I've got a question about protocol. I don't know how often you want to call for public comment, but I stuck my hand up quite a while ago. I don't know if you want to do it agenda item by agenda item or whatever. But anyway, my comment goes back to the quorum discussion. And before I forget, the member Singer, that sign in that you mentioned somebody was hesitant about doing, I think, and Jonathan, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that was because Remo doesn't have the rights to some aspect of the program. I think it was the whiteboard. There was this perfunctory sign-in thing that we had to do so that you could use the whiteboard. I think that's all that was. But that's, I mean, you can figure that out. But with respect to the quorum rules can be really arcane. They can be Byzantine. And I am not sure, I tried to look online. I'm not sure what the city of Lafayette has for quorum rules. And I don't know if those rules apply. Well, yeah, but I don't know if they apply to all the committees and commissions and the council across the board. And if they do, that's fine. But even having said that, if your objective, if your concern is having a lot of public comment that goes on into the wee hours of the night, and I think there are things that you could do other than adjourn the meeting and hear the public comment another day. For example, if there were 6 members there and one had to leave, so you're down to 5, I don't think that automatically terminates the meeting. I think what that means is you can't conduct business because you don't have a majority that can vote to do something, but the meeting can continue. So if you wanted to hear all the public testimony that you think may take 3 hours, that can all be heard by the remaining 5 members, it seems to me, because I don't think you need a majority to adjourn. Typically, that's what, so it may be, I'm just pointing this out, it may be worth looking at the quorum rules a little bit to see if there's some way that you can use them in your favor to achieve the objective that you were trying to achieve, that is avoiding those long meetings. Because, cutting the meeting off and having the people come back to the next meeting, isn't going to make it, unless they just all say, hey, forget it, I'm not coming. It's not going to make that list any shorter. So it's going to be the same problem from one meeting to the next, it seems to me. But I think there may be some wiggle room with the quorum rules that would allow you to continue, even though you couldn't conduct business, to perhaps hear public testimony, for example, before the meeting was adjourned. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, David.
I don't see any other hands raised at this time.
Okay. So let's move to our next topic. It's 7:05, so we're shooting for 7:30. The next topic is geared to last for about 45 minutes. That'll take us slightly past 7:30. Does anybody have an objection to starting?
I actually don't think it will take as long as it was listed.
Oh, okay.
Feel free to.
Okay. All right. So the next presentation is on housing element, a review of the 2020 annual progress report and current goals, policies, and programs. So staff, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Lee. We wanted to continue our discussion on goals, policies, and programs as it relates to the housing element and the general plan at large. We last brought the conversation on goals, policies, and programs to GPAC on February 16th, where we covered some of the material we'll go over again today, introduced what goals, policies, and programs are, why they're important, and how we're going to go about making some amendments to them. So goals, policies, and programs are the end goal of the public engagement process. They are the direction that the general plan will provide. So after taking in public comment and public input, recommendations will be formulated by GPAC and then will be put into the final document to guide decision-making for many years to come. A couple things to keep in mind: goals, policies, and programs should consider the impacts on other elements. So even though we're working on the goals, policies, and programs for the housing element, we've got to keep in mind that there are many other elements to follow, and the programs and goals that we place in the housing element shouldn't work against the other elements that we have to work with. Goals, policies, and programs are important. Just as an anecdote, I think I mentioned this last time, but planning staff, when we make recommendations to the Design Review Commission, Planning Commission, City Council, we are always referencing consistency with the general plan. So we look at the existing goals, policies, and programs and see how these projects that are under consideration further those goals or do not. Towards the end of this presentation, we'll talk about the APR because it does tie into the goals, policies, and programs. We have a program that talks about continuing to update the annual progress report, even in our existing housing element, and that's likely one that's going to continue. Next slide. We shared this last time also. It's the proposed process to draft new goals, policies, and programs. Before we get started on this, in our staff report, we included the goals, policies, and programs from the last housing element because it's important to remember that we will be working off of an existing document. We're not going to be starting from scratch. There's a lot of work that went into that housing element. So it's likely that we'll take that housing element, make modifications to them, add some new programs that come up, maybe remove some that are no longer relevant. Not starting from scratch, we're starting from an existing document. The process is expected to first seek public input, which we will be doing through our community workshops coming up. We've been doing that with our weekly activities on Engagement HQ. We take a look at, we synthesize public comment as well. So that seeking public input part is a big portion of this. We'll then develop draft goals, policies, and programs, get public feedback on those drafts, revise it again, and then present that to the Planning Commission and City Council for review. Next slide. Also in the staff report, we included the broad list of recommendations and considerations from the City Council Equity and Inclusion Task Force that was held at a town hall on January 2020. That long list is not direction from the task force for GPAC to implement all those items. It's just a broad list of things to consider as we go through the general plan. When we talked about DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, at towards the beginning of GPAC's formation, it was decided that instead of creating a diversity and equity element in the general plan, which is a possibility, GPAC decided that it's best to look at each element individually through the DEI lens. So we will be continuing with that as well. Next slide.
Thanks, Jonathan. And one thing, one thing to add on to that list of suggestions is there was a more comprehensive list that came out of those conversations, but we just provided the elements, or the suggestions that came that were directed towards planning and were related to the housing element and general plan update. Just wanted to clarify that point because I know there was a question about that earlier. So moving on to our annual progress report. So this is the way that the city communicates to the state on how we're doing towards our RENA allocation, but then also how well or what we're doing to implement our GPPs, the goals, policies, and programs. So it covers the entire calendar year. So we just finished our 2020 report. It was just went through Planning Commission and City Council from January 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020. And the report, as you may have seen, tracks the number of units that are proposed, approved, built, under construction, and finished construction in that calendar year. And so this helps HCD, the State Housing Department of Housing and Community Development, understand how many new units are coming in the pipeline and how close we are to meeting our RENA allocation. And then also it breaks down the affordability and how long those units will be affordable for. So it kind of gives them this very granular data from the statewide level of where affordable housing is and how long it's going to be affordable and where new housing at all income levels might be coming into play. So the APR includes a number of things. There are many, many sheets in the Excel if you opened it up, but only a few of these items, which are bolded here, are relevant to Lafayette at this time. So maybe in the future that we'll have to report on some of this. But this just kind of shows the degree to which we as planning staff are tracking our progress with every application. We are collecting information in those huge spreadsheets that you saw as documentation. So how have we been doing? So right now we are in the 5th cycle of the RENA allocation, and which that spans from 2015 to 2022, end of 2022. And so far, as you can see, we have a good deal of above moderate income units produced, well over our requirement, and we have a few more affordable units to go. So we still have some time to go forward, and as you see in the APR, we have units coming down the line, but we do. There is a deadline for them to be counted towards our current cycle. And I got a clarification from Diana Elrod that anything units approved or completed after June 30th, 2022 can be counted towards our next cycle. So that's just something to anticipate and consider. But we just wanted to give this as a reference point as we go into these community workshops that there might be goals, policies, and programs that GPAC could consider or the community could put forward to help us better perform towards these RENA allocations. So what are some takeaways from this? We just wanted, as Jonathan mentioned, to remind you that you're not starting completely from scratch. There is a solid base in our current housing element, So we just want to make sure that you all had those in mind as we're going into these community conversations as a reference point, understanding what we already have on the books, and then also consider what we can improve upon in those. So some things might need to be updated, some could be removed entirely that weren't implemented and aren't really relevant anymore. And then also considering how, looking at it through that DEI lens, what can we include, and how can we promote more inclusive GPPs as the GPAC determined was a priority. Excuse me, not a priority, as a lens through which to consider this. So with that, we will end our presentation. Thank you.
Great. Any questions from the committee? Matt?
Yeah, good presentation. When I was going through this, and particularly reading through the policies and goals and programs, one of the things that jumped out at me is that, and I'm trying to think of, as we go through this process, start to enhance these, is we didn't seem to have a lot of, I'll call it accountability, not to be too harsh, but there were departments that were responsible, but there was no accountability in there. And sometimes there didn't seem to be any incentives for funding or anything like that, or funding for doing these. And is that normally left out, that that's somebody else's issue in terms of setting that piece up? Or is that something that should be incorporated in this type of document, typically in cities when they do this?
So I think historically we haven't gotten to that level of detail in the general plan. It's sort of, I think that level of detail kind of goes more into the programs, sort of so it gives you the big picture goal and then kind of how you're going to implement it through the programs themselves. But that's something to consider, maybe at least something more general that says, here's where we think the money might come from, or the staff time, or
Okay.
how it might get implemented.
Because for example, I saw that we're far off on the very low income housing, and my assessment is we won't make that number. And so was there, going forward, if we don't try to do something that maybe gives people accountability or incentives or funding to tools, I guess, to address that, it seems like we'll just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. So what you're saying, Sarah, is that we do have the ability to put that type of language in there if we deem it appropriate.
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the examples in the DEI list was about kind of exploring what it would look like to have a impact fee for that then would kind of produce money to allow to incentivize affordable housing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jim, and then Carol.
Yeah, I think I've got maybe three. The first is Housing Goals, Policies, Programs is 20 pages, highly detailed. I guess it really, so is our job going to be to go through the existing 20 pages of housing policies, programs to update them for the upcoming cycle? Is that what we're doing? Is that the goal here, or is that where we're going to be getting to?
That will be part of it, yes.
Okay, because something like maybe just like RENA lottery program just carries on, I suppose, but we're going to have to go through all the stuff here, I would think, to really do this right. Is that
right? And I think we'll probably bring it to you in sort of chunks,
okay,
so that it's not overwhelming.
All right. And then I guess with respect to the annual monitoring, these numbers are all made up. There's no way you can do low or very low income housing without massive subsidies. So it's sort of like a magic wand. And we're not going to get to the end of the cycle anywhere close to it. The goal is we're not going to get to the next cycle anywhere close to that goal absent massive subsidies. So this is an existential question. What does that mean? We can't get there. absent big dollars come from somewhere else. So
Yeah.
what's the point? I mean,
I think actually the goal is to sort of lay the groundwork, right, to allow for the possibility of that housing to be built, not necessarily right to build it. The city doesn't build housing, but it can allow for certain things to be facilitated or not, right, depending on the community values.
right. We could zone, or city could zone, instead of 35 per acre, it's, I don't know, whatever, twice that. But you could make it 1,000-story type of, you could go up 1,000 feet, but unless you've got the money to make the affordable stuff work, it's not gonna, it's moot. So I guess I come to go like, what's the point? So.
Yeah, just to build on that, because I'm kind of the same point with Jim, is if I'm the state and we miss it this cycle, low income.
Right.
And we're not doing anything dramatically different next cycle, is the state going to scratch their head and say, you guys are never going to make it, therefore we're going to do this thing to you, whether it's a penalty or a ticket over? I guess I'm trying to think, what is our responsibility to come up with ideas that get us there, or are we just admitting this is going to be this is almost impossible given the current set of tools that we have?
Yeah, and I think part of it will be, I think you're right that the state has done that in the past, right? So because we've had sort of poor performance, that has been they've sort of taken away a little bit more local control, and so our goal is going to be to encourage the development of the affordable housing in the best way, in the best location, in the best design that we can. So I think that is really the goal. It's like, how can we encourage this to happen in a way we want it to happen, so the state doesn't remove what little control we do have.
I don't think the state can be punitive towards us for forces we don't control. So, like if the federal government decides to increase and broaden the low-income housing tax credit, for example, that should, in theory, help produce more low-income housing. Likewise, if construction prices go down, that should, in theory, help generate production. So these are forces we don't control. So I think our job is simply to zone it and let the legislative and market forces do its thing and see if production happens. So I cannot envision a scenario where the state would penalize us for things that we don't control.
So right now the current penalty is with SB 35. And if we don't achieve targets in any of these categories, including the above moderate, and they'll be reviewing it pretty often. It's not like if we don't meet it, it's like when we don't meet it on the next cycle, they go to streamlining and ministerial approval for projects. So council won't even have those 5 meetings and planning and design review and nothing. It'll be ministerial approval. That is already in place. There is also legislation on this, year's legislation to put more teeth. So the stick is here. It's coming, and that's what is happening right now.
But Mayor Candell,
Okay,
in your
I was going to ask if Jim, are you finished? Because I think Mayor Candell just said something that a number of us want to respond to.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I've launched a grenade in this room, so let me take my hand down.
Okay, and so we have Carol, and then I heard Matt, and then I think I have my hand up too.
I'm on a little different subject. I think Matt's still on the same thread here. Why don't you go ahead?
Oh, thank you. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Chair Lee. I guess, Mayor Candell, I feel like we're kind of in a rock and a hard place here. I'm looking for some guidance.
No, we are.
The city's in a rock and a hard place. As our mayor, should we think through some dramatic ideas that could potentially move us a lot closer on the low income, because that's our problem.
Of course.
And is the council at a point where they're willing to entertain aggressive ideas to really make a big improvement here? Or
Yes, I think the council would be very welcoming to doing whatever we could to achieve our affordable goals. Yes, and our only mechanism now is to overproduce the above, the luxury stuff, the unaffordable stuff, which HCD already says the state has too much of, but we're going to make more of those, and in order to get the trickle down 15-20% of our affordable units. That is the only mechanism. And if you were right on the money part, I added it up. If we were going to have to just fund our allocations for the next cycle, it's $660 million for Lafayette, just for Lafayette, to be able to create those. And so we're not talking about a couple of bake sales. We're talking about, so yeah, but anything we can do, and I think you're right, if we can, expand on, trying to somehow generate money or incentives or whatever, I'm sure, council would be very open to that.
Chair Lee, if I might just add on to Matt's point before we move on, is that okay? So I'd also just like to zoom out and provide a little bit of context that Lafayette used to have a redevelopment agency, and so did many communities throughout California, and those were disbanded in 2012. So this is the first RENA cycle. The RDA, as it's called, was a mechanism by which we would receive funding to perform activities like subsidizing affordable housing. And so that is part of the compounding problem here, is that funding and that tool was taken away. So there are conversations about redevelopment 2.0, but at this point there's nothing on the books for that. So I just, there's a little bit more background there. That was a tool that once existed that might come back.
All right, Carol, you're next, and I also have a question.
Shirley, I'm sorry. I want to just follow up on a point Matt raised. So on the affordable housing front, so, and maybe this is directed to Mike a bit, I don't know, but so if there were I know we need these massive subsidies, but there were an optimal density to facilitate affordable housing. It's probably not 35 an acre, maybe it's 75 an acre. I have no idea. But so we can say, look, we made our best effort to facilitate this absent the subsidies. We zoned these areas for 100 an acre or whatever. Is that the approach then? Is that how we can best facilitate affordable housing absent the subsidies? And Micah,
the primary reason why affordable housing is not occurring today is obviously not because of demand, because we know there's plenty of demand. It's because a capital stack cannot be accomplished. It's a combination of public and private funds, and there are shortfalls everywhere.
Right.
The reason why there's shortfalls everywhere is primarily, there's multiple reasons, but primarily driven by market forces that we don't control. Labor costs, construction costs are through the roof. The production, even an affordable housing developer needs to hire a general contractor in the open market. They have to pay market rate prices for wood, nails, light bulbs, and they're expensive. And so it's a combination and just the dynamics of the market is just so expensive. And then just lastly,
you're breaking up.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Mike.
He had the answer.
Carol, go ahead. You've been waiting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm on a different subject. Does anyone have anything? It's a very.
I have something for Mayor Kandel based on her input. We've got to be one of hundreds of cities in California that are in this boat.
None are reaching it. There are no cities, even Dublin, that produced 600% of their market rate housing achieved their affordable goals. So no, there aren't any.
It's not just our problem to solve.
Oh, no.
Roll the dice with. So is there power in numbers?
Yes, always. we get the legislature to rethink maybe some of the policies and help us out a little. Yeah, that's one way. We're gonna, at the next meeting, on the April 26th meeting, Cam called it pivot and fight. And so we are going to be talking about some of these things that maybe would help us with this quest. Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, I have something on this. I think we need to be careful. We run into this in Park and Rec a lot over the years. We go out for public comment and we don't say what our parameters are. We go out for public comment, we collect all the public comment, and it's all kinds of things that are not in the agreement of the land we bought or what we wanted to do, swimming pools, golf, everything. So we've gone out, we're going to gather all this information from the public. And I think we need to be careful that, you know, if you're thinking about going to zoning of 100 units or, you know, we didn't tell the public about all this. So I just like to put a little warning note out there. The public gets very upset when you collect everything they want and then you do your own agenda. That was one thing. The other thing I wanted to ask on the housing element, who is writing the other, 77 pages? Are we doing that or what? The housing element's 97 pages, right? So who's writing all the rest of it, all that narrative? Do we have any input into that?
Certainly you could. Ultimately, that's part of what Diana Elrod does in terms of our housing consultants. She does the background reporting and kind of outlining how we're meeting things and how we're complying with state law. But if there's anything that you specifically want to talk about, we absolutely can bring it to this group.
So you're saying we are not writing it as such?
We were not planning to go line by line through the entirety of the document with this group.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That was my question.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Dick has been waiting a long time.
Not that long, thanks. Back to staff on the low income allocations. Are the the Thursday workshop, the questions is fine, it's general, kind of aspirational. Will the subsequent workshops get into that issue specifically, given that's probably the biggest one out there? I think that's, and kind of with what Carol was saying, you know, the community should be hearing about all this and having full opportunity for input.
Yes, yes. And so I think just in terms of kind of the parameters and making sure the public understood, you know, what kind of the constraints we are working within, we sort of tried to do that as part of the Housing Element 101 sessions. And we'll continue to kind of reiterate that, right? Because we do have a framework within which we're working. We can't just do anything we want. And yes, it will get more narrow. So we're going big picture to very specific opportunity sites, as well as the zoning edition. Yeah, Renata's going to just share the sort of anticipated process of the workshops, right? So we're going to talk about values around housing, opportunities and challenges. Then we're going to talk about where exactly we should place the density and upzoning if needed, as it relates to those CEQA scenarios that the council will be discussing on the 26th. And that's when we're going to use that balancing act tool that kind of helps us formulate and sculpt where we think that density can be accommodated. And then also the final one would be the specific opportunity sites that we have to demonstrate that can accommodate the development. And I just want to reiterate that sort of in parallel, the CEQA analysis is happening, the public engagement is happening, and all of these things kind of are iterative, right? We may have to kind of go back and say, oh, those opportunity sites don't produce that housing that we need, or where we decided the zoning might work or not work, we might need to go back and take a look at that again. So it's iterative, but all of those things kind of funnel in and create the end product.
Okay, thank you.
Sarah, on the solutions, the two you had listed were density and upzoning. Were those just two examples, or can they be any solutions that people come up with?
For the third workshop?
Yes.
So I mean, ultimately, it could be any solution. Those, I mean, those are the ones that we anticipate will will have to happen somewhere, and it's just more of a matter of where it could be accommodated, should be accommodated, and what types of units in which locations.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I just want to interrupt for a minute, and it's a little past 7:30. Do we want to vote to continue the meeting? I anticipate at this point we just have questions left, but then we have to open it up to public comment.
I'm good for another half hour.
I'd vote to keep going to 8. We need to get public comment.
So do we need to do a formal vote, Sarah? Or?
Generally speaking, that's a great idea. We need a motion, we need a second, and then we need a roll call vote.
All right, well, I'll make the motion to continue the meeting until 8 o'clock.
I'll second.
We'll go through a roll call vote.
Okay. We
Well, I
have
have a question. I have a question before you call for the vote. If so, if some people want to leave, it's all right.
Well, you would vote no if you didn't want to stay past 8 o'clock. And we'll do it again if we're still talking at 8 o'clock.
Right. I guess my question is then, if it turns out at the end there's not a quorum, or we decided we didn't need a quorum. Is that right?
I think it was
I'm not
just,
sure.
you didn't need a quorum if
This
you were
is
just
just-
listening to public comment, but we're
Yeah,
discussing.
you didn't need a quorum. Okay.
I think we do need a quorum today.
I think we do
You or
too.
you don't?
We do.
We do. So somebody that wanted to vote no could wait till the end, and if there's no quorum, then they could change their vote to keep the quorum. Is that a maneuver that's legal?
Right now, we're just taking a vote to extend the meeting till 8 o'clock. But I think we're required to open to public comment. Isn't that right?
Correct, yes.
We are. Okay.
But Sarah, didn't you just say we had to have a quorum though?
Yes, we do have to have a quorum.
Comment?
I think just generally speaking, the meeting needs to have a quorum. Just generally, that's a great
I'm not trying to be difficult, but my question is, if you wanted to leave and you finished the vote, if you said no, and then you finished the vote and it turned out there were others who wanted to leave, so there was no quorum, then could I change my vote to yes, extend it, so the quorum stayed?
I think everyone who wants to leave needs to vote no, so we know that there would not be a quorum, in which case we would need to make a new motion or end the meeting.
All right, okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay. So roll call vote. Can staff do that for us, please?
Carol Singer,
Yes, extend the meeting.
Namratha Kasalanati,
Extending the meeting that is to 8 or past 8.
To 8.
To 8.
Okay, yes.
Don Jenkins,
Yes.
Dick Craig,
Yes.
Matt Pease,
Yes.
Beth Needle,
Yes.
Jim Cervantes,
Aye.
Mike Kim is absent, logged off at 7:31. Susie Kelly,
Yes,
absent.
I'm here.
Christine Rasmussen,
Yes.
and Chris Lee.
Yes. Okay.
Motion passes.
We have 9 yeses, no nos. Okay. So does anyone have any more questions before we open to public comment? Good. Sarah, Renata, are there any raised hands for public comment?
So if you would like to make a public comment, please use the raise your hand function at the bottom of your screen. If you're calling in *9. We have one hand. I'll promote David Clark now.
Thank you.
Dave Clark, since you extended the meeting, I got to say something. But I heard an idea. I'm not sure whose it was, but I'm sorry, I can't give attribution. But earlier tonight about incremental financing, and that's. I know we've had at least one project. Well, we probably had many in Lafayette. This is more of a question than a comment, or at least it occurs to me that the problem is the lack of low and very low housing development, as you've all pointed out. And I'm not sure there's a market incentive on the part of developers that are seeking density bonuses, for example, to go there. So I don't know if there's a mechanism in place, but what would it take to get money from a developer, an incremental, not incremental, but some kind of financing in lieu of developing the, let's say, moderate housing that developer would otherwise develop and get a density bonus for. Because if we had cash, and granted, the city doesn't want to get in the position of becoming a builder, but if we had cash, the city could be in a position of presumably hiring somebody to build a very low. So I guess what I'm suggesting is, or wondering is, whether there's a potential trade-off of cash in exchange for not building more of the level of affordable units that would already have too many of, to end a sentence in a preposition. All right, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Do we have more public comment?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised at this time.
Ooh.
Let's wait another 10 seconds or so. Okay. We want to return to our discussion. Do I see any raised hands? Jim?
Yeah, I want to respect David's question, which is pretty technical. That's really more Dana's field, I think. And maybe that's a follow-up with her. We're going to have to delve into the affordable housing question, I think. And so maybe what he raised is something that's part of the mix. I mean, I think there's limits on how much you can get out of developers, but I'm over my depth on that. But maybe that's something to flag for Dana.
And I just want to remind the committee and David too, we had a presentation probably 5 or 6 weeks ago on the economics of development.
Right.
And part of that was to try to draw a very clear picture about what motivates building generally. And the absence of the redevelopment money and all of the hoops that developers have to jump through anyway to build the low and very low income. I mean, we're not the only city to be having this problem. It's just not getting built.
Right.
So, Mayor Kandel.
Just real quick, the ideas that have been floated in front of council, just to give you, are nonprofit land trusts that could be set up that actually might work in a city like ours. And there's the land value recapture, which is when we upzone, we're giving away money for free. And we can not just give that away, we can actually get some of it back in order to fund some more affordable housing. That is, other cities have done that too. Berkeley did it. So yeah, there's ideas, and I think it's a good idea to put this on the thought process to explore them as much as we can.
And to respond to David's question directly, we don't currently have an in lieu fee, but that is something that we can consider, particularly for those that don't create a new unit themselves, because it's a percentage, right? And so it's only those developments that are over, I think, 7 units, which would create a full unit to be actually constructed. So if it is a smaller development than that, we could incorporate an in lieu fee for that portion that they're not providing.
Okay. Any other hands raised? Oh, Matt, you have your hand up.
Yeah. This question is to staff, maybe Mayor Kendall. Have we looked at in the past, I don't think it's the right technical term, but they're pre-manufactured construction that requires, they're a lot less expensive, and they don't require all the trades and things such as that. And I've seen some examples in my research, and some of them actually look pretty nice. I know it sometimes requires building code changes, but have we looked at that as a way to reduce the cost that we saw in the last presentation?
We can. So City of Danville has pre-approved designs on their website. And so we could do that and if we have ones on there that are these cheaper little pod things or what, the semi pre-constructed things,
right.
Some 3D printed, honestly. If we wanted to pursue that, yeah, you could add that to this list and we could try to pursue that.
Okay, but we do have control over how we require, I mean, sometimes the trades are required and that keeps your costs high. We could change that if we needed to.
No idea.
Okay.
It never got developed that far for us to ask that question. I honestly don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So
Okay, we have, oh, go ahead.
Could I chair for the chair?
Was that Renata trying to talk? No?
Yeah, I was going to just suggest that we could bring this back. It sounds like there's a lot of interest in this topic, so we could kind of bring back a conversation about, pros and cons of these different potential approaches. Do a little survey of that, just to be mindful of time.
Sure.
Right, and we actually have a fair number of committee members who are not only interested in this subject, but they have a background in this subject. So I would really like to toss it out there for committee members to think about possibly doing research and I know we've got our plate full with the workshops, but if it's something that you like to think about and work on, that I can, certainly be the coordinating person. But if you would like to take a subject or part of a subject and do some research on it and bring it back, I think that would be a good thing for the committee.
Good.
So for instance, I would like to look into the City of Danville's website and see what they're doing. We can take this offline. I can put an email out through Sarah and see if anybody has interest in this.
Chris, I will volunteer to look more closely. I've done a little bit on the ADU idea, and I Danville and Concord, according to Sarah, have done some of these things. And I have visited with, or at least attended webinars for some of these prefab things that are being talked about. So that is an interest to me, and that does definitely reflect my senior status as far as, because I do think the existing homeowners, there is a lot of potential there if in fact the state will allow for it. And I would be happy. I'd much rather do that than share one of these meetings that you're coming up here next 4 Thursdays.
Right. Well, I'm convinced there are a number of us that have been following the housing issues since they became committee members, and it's nice to get their wisdom and knowledge in a meeting. Matt, you have your hand up?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't take it down. My apologies.
That's okay. No problem. And who else do we have? Anybody else?
I have mine up.
Okay, Carol?
All right,
ahead.
if what Renata suggested, we have some of this on our next agenda, I'd like to, if Mayor Candell would bring what she was talking about, or how that works, or what the documentation is, the captured value.
Mhm.
Is it
The land
legal
value
or
recapture.
not legal, and what's the tax,
Mhm.
you know, the how it works.
Mhm.
We have
And then
that.
the nonprofit land trust.
Well, is that the captured value? The
No,
non-
they're separate.
Yeah, they're separate. Those are two separate things.
Right.
Mhm.
I wanted the captured land value, how that works.
Well, that was only gonna be a short one.
What's that? Oh. I'm sorry, I thought I heard somebody say something. No?
I think
Okay.
it was background noise.
Oh, all right. Okay. Anything else before we adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
We're coming in 10 minutes earlier than we thought.
Oh, wow.
I second.
Great.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.